Okay, team, what's up? Welcome to Thursday. Welcome back to the PT on Ice Daily Show. I am Dr. Jeff Moore, currently serving as the CEO of ICE and always thrilled to be here on Leadership Thursday. I cannot wait to jump into this topic about choice and the need to make one. Before we do, it's Gut Check Thursday. Let's not ignore the workout. Let's talk about it. Let's take it on head on. It's a doozy. We've got 5 rounds for time. Okay, we've got 12 handstand push-ups, 9 toes to bar, and 6 squat cleans. Okay, it's going to be at 155, 105. So a little bit heavier than we usually encounter our cleans and Gut Check Thursday, but the volume's a little bit lower there on that set. 5 rounds of that for time. Bang that out. You're probably going to have some rest on the handstand push-ups and the heavier squat cleans. Try to keep moving steady. Make sure you tag Ice Physio, hashtag Ice Trained. We love tracking those videos. Get it in. It's Thursday. Get the work done. All right, upcoming courses. I want to highlight CMFA Live this week. We've got Newark, California coming up. I think there's only 2 spots left in that course. That's with Zach Long and crew. It's going to be September 30th, October 1st, so in a couple of weeks over in California. We've got Linwood, Washington coming up October 7, 8, and then down in Hoover, Alabama, November 4, 5. So if you want to get out on the road, learn all things barbell movements, get into some basic gymnastics, talk about programming, demystify a lot of things around resistance training, that is the course you need to be in. It is, of course, part of our CMFA certification, which includes Essential Foundations, Advanced Concepts, also known as Level 1 and Level 2 on the fitness athlete side. And of course, that during that live course, you get testing in person if you want to obtain that certification. So hit that up. PTOnice.com is where all that good stuff lives. Let's talk about the topic. You have to choose. Team, it has always driven me nuts from the very, very first entrance into my professional career. This comment or idea of more research is needed has always driven me crazy. Now, I don't mean from the actual research side. Like, I get the idea of why that statement is made at the end of papers. Like, hey, to get to a certain level of statistical significance, or confidence, we have to have more data, right? Totally understand where that comes from in the research world. But the ridiculous incorporation or discussion of that into patient care has always blown my mind, right? So you see so many folks saying that we don't know, as though we can't do anything. This is absurd from a patient care perspective. Like, I always imagine these people, like, are you really sitting in front of your 8 a.m. and saying, hey, Lynn, I know your shoulder's really bugging you. Problem is, the jury's still a little bit out on the best rehab for this. Until we know, we're going to pause here. I'm going to have you come back. Like, are you really doing this all day, every 30 minutes with a new patient? Of course not. It's absurd. To be of any use, we must decide and act in the presence of uncertainty. This is true literally everywhere in our lives. It is obviously true in patient care, right? We've got to do something for Lynn, right? We know it's not going to be perfect, but we've got to act with the knowledge we have and do our best. We have got to decide and act in the presence of uncertainty. And this goes so far beyond patient care. This is true in every aspect of our professional journeys and lives. We've got to be willing to choose to say, from what I've learned and experienced thus far, I currently believe X. I don't care what domain you're talking about. I don't care if you're talking about business, sports, hobbies, patient care. Nothing moves forward with waiting. I was thinking about this last weekend. So for those of you who haven't followed my recent journey, I'm getting into enduro motorcycling, right? So I'm signing up for some races next year, and I'm terrible at it. So this weekend, I'm up in the mountains and I'm flying down this trail, moderately out of control per usual, and having to choose lines in real time, right? So you're coming up on obstacles, going relatively fast, thinking, I've got to do something in real time in this moment. I have to choose. Now, knowing full well in that moment that if I was to go back to that same trail 2 years from now, I have no doubt that I would choose a different, and by different, I mean better line, because I'll be better at the activity. But that does not mean right now I don't have to choose. I just have to choose thinking with the experience that I have, what is the best way to move forward, knowing full well it isn't going to be perfect. In a couple years, when I come back, I'll choose something different. This is the process. Just because you know down the road you will know more and do better doesn't mean right now you do nothing. Not in patient care, not in business, not in sport. Yet, people are always trying to remain neutral. And I want to discuss a few of the reasons why they do this, and I want to challenge them a little bit. So, number one, people are often proud of themselves for being open minded. What I would say is excessively open minded. Being open minded is great. Always remaining vigilant that better options are out there and keeping an eye open that you're not missing them because you're so tunnel visioned, that's great. But being excessively open-minded to the point where you say, yeah, I'm open to that, I'm open to that, I'm open to that, I'm open to that, I'm open to everything. Well, at some point, being that open-minded is having no mind at all. And having no mind at all isn't useful to anybody. Being open minded is great. Being excessively open minded to the point where you can't take any stances is useless. And you've got to be careful of which side of that line you're on. Number two is excessive humility about what we don't know yet. People love to say, yeah, but we aren't sure yet. We will never be sure. That's the nature of the game. So while again, some of that humility is useful, so you're not excessively betting on something that you truly don't have the requisite data for yet, understanding that we are never going to hit a point where we say we are absolutely certain about this, knowing that and owning that will allow you to act even in the presence of some level of uncertainty. So this excessive humility of we never know enough to do anything, again, simply isn't useful. Number three, people don't want to be seen as falling into a guru camp. And there's some good reasons for that. Looking back historically, and again, speaking to physical therapy, it's the area I know the best. There have certainly been plenty of extremists in guru camps that have led the collective astray, no doubt. But don't be one of those. Right? You don't have to be an extremist in a camp to go in and say, hey, I think most of what's going on here is pretty useful. Like, there's no reason you can't go into it with that frame of mind. But people are so afraid of being labeled, of being in this camp or that camp or that camp, that they stay, again, doing nothing. And unfortunately, doing nothing doesn't serve anybody. Number four, they don't want to step on toes. Once you say, hey, I believe this, you are naturally going to rub some people the wrong way because now you've committed a bit. You've said, I kind of looked at everything that I could, and I'm going to go this direction. I think this makes the most sense. Well, other people that made other commitments are going to be rubbed the wrong way by that. If that is not happening, you are not doing anything of merit. If you are never rubbing anybody the wrong way, I can promise you, you aren't moving anything forward in a relevant fashion. So reflection point number one of this episode is, are you doing that? In the past couple years, have you rubbed some folks the wrong way? I mean, give that some serious thought. Like, really think, have your stances, have your actions bothered some folks? If that answer is no, you're not standing for anything. And if you're not standing for anything, you're not being useful. So just give yourself a little pause today and really think, like, am I committing enough that people who have made contrary decisions are a bit bothered by that? That should be a constant in your life. As you're working through decisions and emerging and making choices, some people aren't going to love those. And if you aren't feeling some of that pushback, I think you're holding yourself back and trusting yourself and making commitments that actually allow you to decide and move things forward. But the number one reason, as I look at folks who are forever trying to stay in this kind of neutral ground, that I really feel this static posture doesn't get anybody anywhere, is because they don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to look back in 2 years and know the line they took on that motorcycle trail was the worst one they could have chosen. They don't want to be wrong. They're perfectionists. Team action is always imperfect. Action is always imperfect, especially in hindsight. There is not a single action you are ever going to take that you're going to look back with 5 more years of data and say that was perfect across every domain. That's never going to happen. So if you can't embrace that you're going to be wrong, at least in some percentage, every single time you make a choice, you are forever going to be paralyzed. It will be paralysis by analysis for the rest of your professional, business, patient care career. You got to get over that. You've got to embrace that every single action will always be looked back as imperfect. And that is a beautiful part of the process. That's what allows you, as you recognize that, to alter it, shape it, and make it better. This is the process. But if you can't choose imperfect action, you can't choose action, period. And that's a problem if you're trying to be useful as you're moving forward. Bottom line is this: the people that I've observed who have been the most useful, and of course, the most useful meaning the most successful, because these two things tend to go together. You provide a lot of value, you're useful, success follows, are always those who took really deep dives. They said, I think this makes a bunch of sense. I'm going all in. Like, I'm going to learn as much about this as I can. I'm going to try to replicate it. I'm going to try to leverage it. I'm going to try to use it. But as they're doing that, they're aware and okay with acknowledging the shortcomings of that model so that they can, in real time, be seeking out solutions to fill those gaps. They're learning through action, which necessarily followed decisions, choosing. You have to do anything besides nothing. You have to do anything besides nothing. Because if you don't get out there and go, you can't evaluate the shortcomings because you aren't doing anything. The people that I see that act with the most, and again, it's not arrogance, it's not even confidence, it's out of necessity to act. They know they have to say, I know this isn't perfect, but I have to go anyways. Those people that are willing to be in that space, first of all, provide the most value and absolutely learn and refine at the highest rate of speed, simply because the data is now coming back at them because they're out there. And because they're out there, it's a bit vulnerable and emotional, and you tend to learn a ton in those spaces. Now, all of that being said, your decisions should always change. This is a critical part of this conversation, right? Your decisions should always change with emerging data. If they aren't, you're just being arrogant. And now you're falling into the other side of the problem, which is not having one eye open. If your decisions aren't changing consistently, if that's not just a part of your growth and process where you look back and say, ooh, shoot, should have, now that I know better, I'm definitely going to do better because that was imperfect. If you are not regularly doing that, you are also going about this process wrong, but on the other side, right? Remaining blind and over trusting your actions. So reflection point number 2 of the episode is, have they? In the past couple of years, have you reversed course on a couple of key philosophies, beliefs, decisions, directions? If not, I think you're erring on the other side where you're not keeping one eye open. You think your action's perfect. You aren't aware of the imperfection and looking for the gaps, right? You're going in blind. This is every bit as errant, maybe even more dangerously than the former. Right? In this case, not only are you probably not being as useful as possible, but you're probably leading folks excessively astray by not being aware of what's emerging. So reflection point number 2 is, are you every couple years realizing something you believe strongly had some pretty significant flaws? And are you willing to incorporate emerging data to change them? Team, if you aren't willing to embrace that action's always imperfect, you're never going to choose, decide, and move forward. If you don't do that, you can never get the data that fills the gaps of what we don't know that you're so concerned about that's holding you back from action to begin with. Trust that your intentions are good. Remain humble in the face of everything emerging, so you're not totally just tunnel visioned in one direction. Allow that to shape your actions, but make sure that you're actually playing the game. So when you get information, you can modulate in real time, forever become better, but always stay away from the pitfall of doing nothing. Paralysis by analysis is the only way to ensure you're useless your entire professional career. Do anything besides nothing. Stay humble, be ever evolving, but be willing to choose. You'll be wrong. I guarantee it. Me too. Let's be wrong bravely and let's adapt in real time. You have to choose. I hope it makes sense. Hit me up with questions, comments. Thanks for being here on Leadership Thursday, ptonice.com, where everything lives. We'll see you next week. Cheers, team.